Okay, so we're recording now.
Okay. Well, welcome folks to the brown bag on the current exhibit, which is Wild and Scenic Landscape. And the judges for this show were Mike Koloski and Ellen Bishop. Ellen is probably running around newspapers right now. She was to be here now, and maybe that's her. She'll get here. And Mike, I don't know if you folks knew it, but Mike and his wife are thinking they're going to go with their children. But Mike's health condition was part of that. And by the way, we are going to do, it's tentatively, but on September 1st, we're going to reprise a program on Parkinson's for our brown bag that Mike Koloski, Marky Pitts, and Eileen Trudeau did. They did a great job. And anybody, diseases, or conditions, whatever part condition. We all probably know somebody now, and they're I'm going to.
Geez, I have to be on camera.
Well, yeah, but we're going to let Cheryl talk first. Cheryl is going to talk about this whole 4 or 5 year constellation of Wild and Scenics, and then you're going to talk about being a judge. Okay?
Right.
So go ahead, Cheryl.
So I'm Cheryl Coughlin. I'm the executive director here at the Josephy Center. I started as executive director back in, I think about 7 years ago. And at that time, I was approached by Ann Werner. Ann lives in Portland, but she's spent a lot of time here in Wallowa County, specifically in Hell's Canyon, working for the Forest Service. And she said, I've got this great idea, and I think you guys could produce this exhibit. And what I want to do is really celebrate the wild landscape that is so unique to Eastern Oregon. And basically, she explained that this is a landscape that's kind of, it's untouched by man. It's lands that are preserved and for their beauty, for their diversity, for their geology. And one thing about Wallowa County is just how many diverse landscapes we have that range from canyons to mountains to prairies. And so from the time she approached me about this, we started off and we did a photography exhibit, and it was beautiful, wonderful. And so each year we kind of expanded on it. At one point, Kendrick had a bunch of people go down the Snake River in rafts to celebrate the fact that the dam was not built back in the 60s. And he made a catalog of it. And since then, we've tried to produce a catalog along with the exhibit, and we've come up with different themes and ideas as to how we can present the theme. So one is we picked the Zumwalt, which is right here, and we did make a catalog of it. And this is a really beautiful catalog that Ellen put together, and she was the curator of this show, and so she can talk a little bit more about it. She also came up with the idea of last year's exhibit, which was the Lost Teen River, and we made a catalog of this one as well. More recently, we've done things with writing and photography, and now painting as well, multimedia. So we are creating a catalog for this show. It's not quite ready yet, but I'm hoping a little bit later in August we should have it, and you can buy it online. And that's my introduction to Ellen Bishop, who is here, and we are very thankful that she was able to do a little judging so that we could give awards away for this particular show. And I do have to say the sales have been really good. Almost the first place piece sold, the second place photograph sold, and we've had a couple of honorable mentions that have sold. So Ellen, thank you for coming, and maybe you can take it away from here.
Sure.
I'm going to sneak in one time because I promised Megan, you can go and see a virtual exhibit at our website online, number one. And two, Megan says to go on there and vote for your favorite. You can vote online as well.
Vote.
Okay.
Always vote.
Always
Remember
vote.
to vote.
We got to practice voting, don't we?
Practice. Yeah, it's good. It's great practice. Yeah. So thank you for inviting me to do this. And also thank you very much for putting on a really, really great wild landscape show this year. This year, because of COVID-19, the rules were sort of different. They basically, previously, as Cheryl mentioned, the wild landscape kind of involved an artist's encampment or a gathering so that people could come together and kind of get to know one another as artists, and then also go forth into a specific landscape. And this year, because of COVID, evidently the decision was to not do that and to just open it up to wild landscapes of Eastern Oregon. And so we have a really diverse landscape exhibit here that includes everything from the Painted Hills to Zumwalt Prairie to mountains in general and landscapes in general. But there are a lot of Wallowa County landscapes here. The other thing that's kind of opening this up was to not focus it quite so much on one specific time, as previous landscapes have tried to do, kind of encapsulate a portrait of a wild landscape. And we all know that wild is a term that each of us probably has a slightly different definition of. And that's one of the great things about art, is that it can kind of bring those different interpretations together. So judging this was a difficult task because there are so many really great pieces here. But basically, Mike Koloski and I worked really hard. We ended up agreeing on virtually everything as where they belonged. I found it interesting that this particular show seemed to not include as high a proportion of photographs as some of the others have, but it certainly has a lot of really spectacularly good and inspirational paintings, as well as some great photos. So Rich, can I pick this up and haul it around with me and we can show off some of these?
I think
these
you
works?
can.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know how you're going to make the camera go the other way, but you can just
first
hold
simple,
it like
you just hold it like this.
There you go.
See? Okay.
Okay.
So, okay, I'll try not to make anyone seasick as we walk around here.
I do think also, if you want to walk around, that's fine, but I can also show the online exhibit through the website, because some of the pieces have glass on them and they're going to glare a little bit. So
in order for me to talk about them, I probably would like to be looking at them at the same time. Would that be okay? Is everybody with me here? Great. So we're looking at Maju Shaw's First Place collage, which Mike and I both immediately thought was, and it doesn't contain all the reflections, but Mike and I both thought that this was a really imaginative work. It could be the Wallowas, it could be the Elkhorns, it could be any mountain range, but it certainly depicts a wild landscape. And we thought that the color balance and the creativity of taking previous watercolors and repurposing those so that you can actually make a new landscape out of old landscapes was really a great idea.
What's the technique here, Ellen?
This is a collage.
Okay.
So basically what the artist has done is to cut up old watercolors.
Okay.
And repurpose them in order to make a mountain scene. So see if we can just kind of go up here and look at this. Try to avoid looking at the little reflections, but you can see if you look in detail that these are not painted mountains. They are actually cutouts. So to me, it seemed like an original idea, and she certainly captured the whole feeling of a mountain landscape in a very important and new way. So art, it's always good when you have new concepts in art. So maybe we'll have more collages here in the future. And then we also thought that David Jensen's Chesnimnus Vista, which I won't attempt to show you, although it'll be behind me here, which is a black and white photograph, was beautifully composed and shows a, a landscape in Wallowa County that oftentimes we don't really see, and sometimes we don't see it for what it is. And that's another important part of art, is showing people things that they might not otherwise actually have seen from perspectives that they might not. And the same actually is true of Eric Valentine's Dancing Clouds, which I think I can show you here, which is really a very, in a way, a moving piece, in that it has a lot of motion in it. He's captured the clouds. And it, like the other two pieces, it really gives you a feeling of a moving, breathing, living, very wild landscape. And we really thought that that was a really great thing about this particular photograph. So it was really difficult to choose. We did a lot of hemming and hawing and thinking about what we were going to judge as the best awards. So some of the other things that were kind of refreshingly different is basically this piece by MC Reardon. I'm not sure you're going to be able to see it. You can see part of it. It's basically titled Sunset Imnaha Canyon. And it's a little bit of an impressionistic piece that shows the Imnaha. It has good detail in it. And it also is a piece that is, to me, as a scientist artist, it shows and kind of brings out the scale of the canyon, and it's beautifully composed, and it also actually shows some of the salt landscapes there. So that was great. But there are none of the pieces in here that actually are not deserving of an award. So we were kind of wishing we could do first, second, third, and then have everything else be judge's choice. But unfortunately, we didn't have enough pieces of paper to do that. So we were kind of stuck with what the Josephy Center would allocate to us.
I did move David Martin's only the three-dimensional piece over here.
Okay.
But I can bring it back over here.
Okay, and we were puzzled. We were really puzzled about what to do with this particular piece of three-dimensional art here that's at the entryway. But we decided that we wouldn't bestow an award on it, although it does have kind of a COVID-19 cleanliness theme. It didn't really say anything or speak to us about the wild landscape.
I put it over here.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I moved it again. I'm sorry.
So Rich and I are chasing one another around here in order to try to find a static piece of art. Okay, and then we have David Martin's sculpture, which is titled Rimrock to River. I think I've got it in there somewhere, yeah. Which basically just is kind of an evocative piece, all done in wood, from pieces of wood, that just brings out a feeling of exploration. So we thought that was really a great piece to do as well. So there's really nothing here that isn't, as I said, a really good work of art. But the thing that's really important about this particular exhibit is it kind of breaks new ground, because rather than looking just at one landscape, it looks at the whole patina of Eastern Oregon landscape. And it includes this. I'm not sure how. Here's Jennifer Klims's second place winner, which Mike in particular was really enthralled with. And as a painter, he really liked the technique on this piece, liked the mix of colors, the thoughtfulness that went into kind of the impressionism in it. And so, and it is also beautifully composed. So kudos to everyone who was part of this exhibit. We have, as I said, a lot of Eastern Oregon pieces here, more photos from David Jensen, but it's really just kind of a tour. The nice thing about this exhibit is that as you walk around here, you see so many different aspects of what people consider a wild landscape, from the the wild in Naha Canyon, people have been looking at landscapes from all different scales. So right next to Reardon's really beautiful Imnaha painting, we have a photo by Rick Bombassi called After the Burn, which basically just looks at some of the flowering plants in detail. So it's kind of a great reminder that you have to look at wild landscapes, not, I suppose I should walk into the light here. Okay, there we go. That you should look at wild landscapes not just from a single perspective, but if you're out in the wild, remember that not only are there mountains and meadows and fields, but there's individual flowers you can look at. So another good example of that is Eric Valentine's Spring Meadow photo, which is on the website for the exhibit. And it again is a close-up look that makes you look at the details. So remembering that these landscapes have so many aspects to them is really a great thing. And in fact, you can go all the way from the details of Eric Valentine's Zumwalt Prairie lupins to looking at David Jensen's stars. So the wild landscape kind of goes from the tiny to the infinite. And when we're out in the wild landscape, that's kind of the differences that we should be looking at. And this exhibit really brings those differences in scale and focus into sort of everyone's consciousness. So I think it's really a great thing. So Cheryl, do you have any other comments?
I would just say I do want to thank Ann Warner, because she does help us every year produce this exhibit. The theme for this particular exhibit, we had a hard time coming up with something because I really wanted to do something, another event where we all got together, and the theme was expanding views, and I really wanted to go out to like a butte of some kind so that we could have a big party and have someone from the Forest Service come and talk about the geology and all of that. But with COVID, it just got a little more complicated. But like you said before, the photography wasn't as voluminous as I had expected, but there's some really nice pieces. And the paintings are, I think that MC Reardon that you showed is probably my favorite. And if I could buy it, I would. I think it's $1,700. I think it would look wonderful in my living room, but unfortunately, I have to save my pennies for things like food and stuff like that. But if I had the money, I would buy it because I just think it's a brilliant piece.
But art should be priceless. I mean, you should want to not eat so you can have great art, right?
There you go.
I know, but I work at a nonprofit organization, so I'm just not at that capability right now, but I wish I could be. And so yeah, but that will be my People's Choice vote. And I did, off in the comments on the side, I did put a couple of links. And one of the links is to vote for the People's Choice. And I also just did the virtual exhibit, so you can click and take a look at each painting and photograph on its own. And one nice thing about this, just exhibits in general, is that we're supporting artists. And the fact that we've sold quite a few pieces really means that we're doing our job, which is helping artists make a living at their craft. And I would encourage you all to look through. These are really talented artists, and we do want them to succeed. and carry forth and continue creating. If anybody has a question, please raise
Yeah.
your hand.
Okay, I just wanted to make another comment about the art, and that is that, you know, one of the things that this exhibit really showcases, and that Mike really pointed out, is the different sort of not only styles of painting, but different techniques. And so one of the things that he was particularly enthralled with was was Laura Gable, and I see this is already sold. Laura Gable's painting up here, and you probably can't see it in the on the computer screen, but this is a very heavily textured painting. So the texture really speaks to you, and it speaks to the kind of feeling that you get in there. Whereas some of the other paintings don't have as much texture. We were also looking for flow in the paintings, and this oil by Leslie Leviner, which is basically titled On the Trail to Echo Lake, has a lot of movement in it. And if we had had another couple of pieces of paper to stick on here for awards, you know, we both agreed that that would have been one of them, because it takes a landscape, and you know, you can see the movement in the trees. You can kind of feel the wind blowing. It's really a wonderful piece. We have a couple of other.
That one piece right there, Ellen, of Hell's Canyon, it's a painting. I think it's Leslie Hauer.
Yeah.
I also really, really like that painting a lot.
I really love that painting, and I loved it because it's very luminous. And one of the things that it really captures is the way the light falls in that canyon. I was just entranced by that. And so, you know, in a world of tough choices, it was just so difficult to decide, you know, to anoint who was number 1 and 2. And so this is a painting that was, you know, high on our lists, because it does really capture the light. And that's, you know, particularly in paintings, but also in photographs, capturing the luminosity and the light and the feel of a place is really important. And the feel of the canyon here just would never go away. You know, it's
And
really,
he did the other painting that's up on the corner. It's a real small painting, just to the left of.
oh right, the painted Palisades at Clarno.
And that one's a very nice one too. And her palette is very distinct. It's got kind of more muted tones to it.
It does, but she does a tremendous amount with those muted tones.
Yeah.
And so often where we have more muted landscapes, like Hell's Canyon, if you're looking at Hell's Canyon in the fall, there's not much color there. You have your choice of brown, brown, or brown. Slightly different tones, but nevertheless, it's brown, brown, or brown. And so to find that diversity and to bring out the light that's really the heart of that landscape was really a great piece.
I did notice that Tony Robinson is actually on, and his painting is of the fish underwater.
Oh, yeah.
And you could talk a little bit about his piece.
Sure. Yeah, this was another hard one to ignore. So here's this is titled Upstream Kokanee Spawning in the Wallowa River, which really, this painting really appealed to me, because you've got to kind of use your imagination to see the kokanee. And once you do, it almost seems like they're moving in here. So it's really an extraordinary capture of a part of our landscape and part of the wild. And, you know, as we know, we're trying to figure out how to restore sockeye into Wallowa Lake. And so in a way, culturally, it's also really an important work. So yeah, it has a lot of motion in it. You can see the motion in the water. When you get up really close, like any good painting that uses a little bit of impressionism, you can't really, you just see little pieces of different colors, but once you back away, it becomes obvious that there's something there that's that's not just colors, it's fish. And so it's a really great piece of work. And if I had the extra $400, that would be hanging in my place. Do you want to comment on it, Anthony?
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate them very much.
Okay.
I was, yeah, I worked on it quite a while. It took me a while to get the fish under the water. My wife said they look like flying fish. And I said, well, that won't work. So, but yeah, it was, we live so close to that, and I've watched them so much that it was fun to be able to do it. Thank you.
No, you really captured the motion, and you captured the sort of the feel of fish in the river moving and, trying to find their way through the complexities of a riverine system. So I think it's great.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for exhibiting it. It was a pleasure to see that and all the others that came in here. Is anybody getting seasick yet?
There is one question Elnora had. How many pieces were submitted and how many were accepted? Where all are the accepted artists from? So those are several difficult questions. I think there's only 43 pieces in the entire show. I would say there were probably about 55 images submitted, and I can't remember how many artists, but I think it's around 35 artists. And the majority of the people are from the area, but there were several people from Portland. Anne McDermott, she did the very, very small painting that's on the north wall. And then there's several of plein air artists that come every year for the arts festival. So that's Leslie Ann Hauer, Laura Gable. They are part of a group of women from Washington State near Kennewick, and they love this landscape. So whenever they get the opportunity to come down here and paint, they do. And so several of them are from Washington. Eric Valentine is from LeGrand. And David Jensen is from Enterprise. He's the photographer.
David Martin, he's from Idaho, is he not?
No.
No?
No, there's two David Martins. This particular one, he lives in Enterprise. MC Reardon is from Portland, but she travels here quite a bit. So she is represented by Stuart Jones Gallery. So she has a kind of a tie here. I'm trying to think of other artists that are involved. Jenny Klimza is from Joseph, and let's see who else.
Rick Bergman. Rick Bergman.
Rick is from Corvallis, and he was actually in the first Wild Landscape show back in 2014. He's a black and white photographer. I think he may be a retired professor. And there's one woman from Heppner. She has the tree at the front of the exhibit, the lone tree. And then Jennifer Hawkins Connolly, she's the art teacher at Joseph Charter School, and she lives in Enterprise.
All right, and then we have, let me see, Pamela Beach.
Who teaches
Pamela
here?
Beach is an art instructor here at the Josephy Center. So she lives in Enterprise. Rick Bombassi, and he lives in Enterprise. And he actually won first place piece in the Festival of Arts last year with an interesting photograph of ice melting. Really cool photograph. Can't think of anybody else off the top of my head, but
Well, Cheryl,
yes.
I was going to say, Ellen opened by saying we had to do things differently this year because of COVID. And one of the things we had considered, so this is a possibility, we had an Indian artist here, Roger Ammerman, a couple of years ago, and he did a beading workshop, which everybody loved. It turns out that he's professionally a geologist. And he had suggested a geology tour from Wallowa Lake to the Umatilla Res, with both the scientific and the lore behind each geological feature.
That would be awesome.
And so we're trying to put that together. In fact, if anybody's got suggestions, Cheryl and I actually talked about, well, maybe we should do that virtually. But we had talked about somehow tying that into the landscape show.
Yeah, I think
That would be fun.
Yeah.
And another thing for future reference, Ralph Anderson emailed me today, and he said, what's the difference between wild landscape and sacred landscape? And Ellen has addressed some of that in the past, but we have, our land trust has a quote sacred lands portion, and there are Nez Perce places that are sacred, and wild. I should let you say that. Tell them about the relativity of the term wild, because you've discussed that before.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the question about what is wild is really kind of a profound one. Does wild mean that humans have to be forever absent? Or is wild only a landscape that has never been touched by people? Can wild be what now is called a working landscape, although all landscapes are actually working landscapes. They all provide water and energy and oxygen. But so there's a spectrum, because if I were to bring someone from New York City out to any place in Wallowa County, whether it was a farm field or a farmhouse or anything else, they would probably consider that a wild landscape.
As we would consider New York City.
Yes, exactly. Yes, if they saw deer walking up and down the streets in Joseph, they would think they were in the wilderness, so to speak. So there's different. We were when we did the Zumwalt Prairie wild landscape, a number of us were having debates about, well, can your painting show a fence? Is that wild? Does that mean that it's no longer a wild landscape, even if it's a fence that's now dilapidated and falling over, or if it's a picture of a deer jumping over a fence? Is that a wild landscape? Or elk running through a fence, whatever. So yeah, wild there's a spectrum of wild, and just like there's a spectrum of most everything.
Most of the landscapes here, as you said, and we don't know how this landscape was used 100 years ago or 500 years ago. We don't know which mountain peaks were ascended for spiritual quest. We don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know where Indians built their cairns. We don't know all kinds of things about previous usages of.
Right, and we also know that the Nez Perce don't really have a word for wild in terms of a landscape. It's just their home.
Right.
And it's a place that supports them, and they support us. So and it supports them, and so there's not this division between humanity and the world around that supports humanity. So I think that's another thing to explore at some point. And I actually have to.
You have to go.
I have to go, but
you're allowed to go.
Thank you. It's been just great, Rick. Tony, thank you very much for being part of this. I really appreciate your comments. You've got a beautiful painting here that's inspirational and really captures those kokanee without actually having to take them home and put them on the dinner table, which is great.
Thank you so much.
All right. So I will see you guys later.
Thank you very so much, Ellen. I really appreciate you being a part of this. Thank you so much.
Okay. Later.
One thing I did want to add is we do this exhibit normally in August of every year. And one of my favorite things about if you sit at the docent's desk and have visitors come through, I say to them, Yeah, this is a way to look at all points of view in the county all in one room, meaning, all the diverse landscape can be seen, just in this exhibit. And they are really, many people are blown away that we do have this much diversity in Wallowa County.
Hey, come on, here comes Mike Koloski.
All right.
Mike. So Mike was the other judge for this show, and he just finished a show where he was featured along with Ellen and Leslie Leviner. So
Mary and Leslie Leviner.
Mary, yes, Mary. So anyway, the point is that Mike was the other judge in this show. So we'll let him talk for a while about why he liked what.
Okay.
Okay?
So should I do this with the mask on or off?
You can do it. I'll get out of your way and you can take your mask off.
A little easier to hear me. So what have you covered? What a wonderful show this turned out to be. I'll tell you.
We did go through some of the paintings, but we'd love to hear your input. The first place, the second place, the third, and so on and so forth. So please feel free to and if you need Rich to move the computer around for you to show something, let him know.
We can do that. Let me think. I just came through the door, and this show is as impressive as when I saw it the other day, or when I was doing the judging. I don't know how we can improve on this. This is the 5th year. It's been different each year. It differed in a sense of the emphasis and the focus of the show, but it's all been about the beautiful landscape of Eastern Oregon, and especially Wallowa County, Baker area, things like that. But you know all that. So what are we going to do next year? Do you have an idea, Cheryl?
I don't know, but if there's no COVID, we could do something a little more interesting. I would definitely want to do an event.
I realize that the festival, the Wallowa Valley Festival of the Arts, does it in air. But I also know that if that the museum over there, Biggs area, I can't remember the name. Maryhill.
Yeah.
Maryhill does each year a plein air painting session in the Columbia Gorge.
Oh.
And
we are hoping to do a plein air because of the arts festival getting kind of put online. We are going to try to do a special plein air festival at the end of June next year. So that is in our plan. If COVID is still going on, that might get pushed back. But I think we could do a plein air show and still be socially distanced. It would just be that we wouldn't have a party. But that is in our plan. And I think that the wild landscape, we've done a lot of different things. There's a lot of different things we could go with. We could go with lakes. We could go with moraines. We could go with fire. We've talked about fire quite a bit because fire does change the landscapes. We've also we've done Hell's Canyon, but we didn't open it up to artists and photographers. It was just photography, and it was a limited group. So that would be another idea.
I don't know if you're familiar with a book, or maybe it was, I know what it was. It was special on NPR, and I think he followed it up with a book. A very famous photographer from National Geographic caliber photographer, limited himself to 1 image a day. In other words, photographers, when they're out with their cameras, they shoot a lot of pictures. And then they come back and they look at them and select the best and maybe go from there. That's the way to my understanding, photographers have worked thousands of images a day. Let's go through them all. Let's narrow it down. This is my special one. This guy limited himself to one image a day. In other words, he had to decide when he was out there looking at wolves, when he was looking at the sunset, when he was looking at something special, whether that was the image he was going to open his shutter for or not. And in talking about it, he said, well, you know, I was watching a family of wolves, and it looked like this was the thing to do, take the picture then. But you never knew if something more interesting was going to happen after that, and he would not be able to capture it. So I'm wondering if something along the lines of you get to sit in one place and paint one picture, plein air, or photographers, you get to you get one image for the whole show, or one image a day for 3 or 4 days. And maybe the poets, the literary people, could say, I've got 50 words or 100 words to describe something. And I get to pick when it is, what it is, but these are my 100 words. Thought, that's just a thought. And I'm rambling on. You talked about David Martin's piece, I'm sure.
Not really.
We
Okay.
did, you could expound on it.
I got instructions from my leader. This show. Did we talk about David Martin's piece?
A little bit. Ellen did mention it, and we did show it.
Okay, I think that it's special. David does these sculptures. They're natural sculptures. There's a lot, and they seem to have I don't want to say sameness. They have a theme. But I find it amazing that within that theme, his creativity comes forth. And he does so many different things with this particular theme. I think that's just a wonderful piece of work. And did I talk about, I'm sure Ellen talked about the collage. What a way to work. You know, put your paint down and put it on a piece of paper, and then cut up that piece of paper and assemble it along with other pieces of paper and make a beautiful composition out of it. Lots of things going for it. And some of our artists, I think of, excuse me, the teacher from Joseph. Help me out here.
Jennifer Clemson.
Jennifer Clemson.
I mean,
Yes.
Connolly. Jennifer Connolly.
Jennifer Connolly or Jennifer Klimza?
But at Conley too. Jennifer Klimsa retired from teaching a while back.
Right.
I've seen her work over and over again, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and she's very creative. But this piece, I mean, she just rung a bell with it, and I'm really very pleased with that. I'm an old painter. I'm an artist who's been working for a long time, and you sometimes wonder if your best days are over. And unfortunately, I think mine probably are. But when you can hit a bell like that and further in your career, that's wonderful. Okay, what else do we need to know about this show? Oh, I like the intimate things.
What were you looking for mostly, Mike? What raised one piece above others for you?
Okay, I'll give you my standard spiel. First off, you got to go through it, and it's got to grab you and pull you over. In other words, it's got to call from across the room, come take a look at me. You think of all the art that's in museums, wonderful pieces, wonderful masterpieces, great artists. And the art that calls you across the room and says, look at me, and you stand there and you look at it for, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 minutes, however long it takes you to absorb it. I think that's what I'm looking for, something that calls me across the room, and then when it does, it shows that it's got a lot of originality and interesting work, and it keeps me occupied, moving around, looking at different things for quite a bit of time. It's been said that in the major museums in the world, I was going to say, the average time spent in front of a particular piece of artwork is 5 seconds. So this piece of artwork, for me, that gets a prize is the one that certainly gives me more than 5 seconds of pleasure. And then I was going to say the little tiny things, these grasses here with the hoarfrost on it, the beautiful work that Rick Bombassi did in displaying a seed head, and then you look beyond the seed head and you see a field that's been ravaged by fire. Those are great combinations, and it just shows a lot of creativity and intent.
Do you mind if I share the screen so people can see some of the images that we didn't show earlier?
Yeah. No, go ahead. Can you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn my little walker around here instead of my tush, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Go down too far.
Oh. No, and I can adjust that. That's no problem, Mike. I can adjust that. You want it up a little bit?
No, I'm fine the way I am. If
Are you?
people can see me.
Good. She can't get it to share screen?
Yeah,
Where's your moving, Cheryl? We can do that.
I'm trying to get it. It's asking me to do something in my preferences.
Cheryl, are all the pieces that are in the show in the virtual show?
Yes.
Okay. People, again, you can vote for People's Choice online. You can probably purchase online, can't you?
You can. We've sold several pieces through our online store.
And Cheryl started talking about this $1,700 painting that she didn't have enough money for, but there are a lot of paintings and photographs that are priced considerably lower than that.
Oh, yes. Oh,
So
yes.
there's something for,
If I were not picking up and moving soon, I would be adding to my art collection with this show, that's for sure. Very reasonably priced pieces and beautiful artwork.
Security. Okay, sorry this is taking so long. Security and privacy. Keep talking.
keep talking.
Well,
There.
what else did I? Oh, and there's one little piece here in the corner that got the judge's choice, which means I helped, we awarded all the prizes, we gave the honorable mentions, and then the judge got to pick one out. And it's this beautiful painting, photograph by Eric Ballantyne. And it's just a little piece, and it's one of those, like I said before, he chose, if he had to choose one thing during the day to trip his shutter once, he found it. Beautiful cirrus clouds sweeping up into the sky, showing the grandeur and the almost the unending depth and extent of our landscape. And then you got these cirrus clouds. She's going to try to find it for us. Good luck.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
I can see your screen. Oh, what a beautiful piece this is. And what a beautiful piece. Look at them, guys.
Now on each of these pages at the bottom is where you can vote. So this is a David Jensen.
Amazing piece. I guess as a photograph, we felt that it was, I don't want to say concocted, but it was very well worked. It was maybe too much in there, but it sure is a piece of art and something interesting. It succeeded. Oh, look at these elk. Yeah, that's Jennifer, I think.
Yeah, Jennifer Connolly, Hawkins Connolly.
With that one.
Going like they're changing the photos. This is Rick Bergman.
Right.
And that's the second place award, Jennifer Klim.
The Jennifer Klimsa I was speaking about. Wonderful color and movement. Oh, and Leslie Leviner did this, and we liked it because it has movement, and it doesn't have a particular focus. Leslie usually does pieces, and they seem to just focus right in on a particular piece of beauty. Well, that was like you take a walk with me right there through all that beauty.
Right. And here's several of the other pieces in the show. June from Artist Point.
Yep, all wonderful pieces, but I like the one to walk along with Leslie as she shows me through that forest and
Yeah.
the beauty there. You don't have Eric, you can't come to Eric's very quickly, can you?
Eric,
I'm sorry, I presume it's Eric Valentine, former judge.
so let's see, let's find Eric's.
Oh, that's a beautiful piece. They're all so lovely. And this, is it a far off mountain or is it a rock right in front of you? I'll let you choice. I know what it is, but it's not, it's not apparent when you first look at it. Lovely piece here.
Yeah.
Let's take that together off into
I think that one is like a palette knife painting, just made with the palette knife.
Yes.
So
Several pieces in here we were captivated by. We're getting close.
here's Margot, and here's Eric Valentine. So I'm just going to go to view all of his work. So actually, Eric was a circuit court judge for many, many years. He's retired now, and I was once a court clerk, so he was my boss for a short period of time. He's a great guy, lives in La Grande, and has always taken gazillions and millions and made calendars of his photographs. He's really quite talented.
That one in the middle is the one I was speaking about where he just tripped the shutter at the right time. And if I was Charlie Brown, I'd be wondering what those clouds are.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
They're sweeping up. Dancing clouds, he says. Oh, that's what they are. They're dancers.
Uh-oh. It doesn't have a back button. Uh-oh.
Technology, don't you love it? Oh, this is a beautiful piece.
This one right.
Beautiful. And of course, our number one was up there in the left, right? Correct?
The winning image, Maja Shah. Her piece is called Mountain Meadow.
Oh, and there was a nice, beautiful little piece by Kai Oliver.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I loved it, especially in the previous show. Kai had a piece in there. And this young man is a wonderful artist already and will be even better in the future. That's unless he becomes a .com guy and, I don't know, earns a lot of money. Look at him go, folks.
This is what won third place. David Jensen's.
Yeah, just being there and taking that view.
All right. Sorry, we're kind of repeating a little bit. This is Margot Fox.
It's worth repeating.
This one's Kathy Bowman. She lives in Joseph.
Beautiful work, Kathy. Her stuff, it's always unique. It's always different. I have
Kai's piece.
There's the one that Kai did. Isn't that lovely? Way to go.
Oh, that one looks like it got there Here's a Leslie Ann Howard.
What are these? Are these little gnomes out there, or is it a shepherd and his flock of visitors? Is he showing the landscape and looking at us? Are we viewing the landscape and looking at him?
Yeah, this piece is really cool too, the very close up.
Yes. Oh, and this one came close. The color, the movement, lots of good stuff there. And this is Rick Bombassi I was talking about. A little seed head, a flower head, gone to seed, a few more in the background, and the burn in the back. Oh, didn't we give this a prize, honorable?
Yeah, this one is an honorable mention, MC Reardon.
This is Hell's Canyon. You can imagine seeing that, but it's he abstracted it enough to just pull out the essence of what Hell's Canyon is all about.
Yeah, I like the color, how it changes to intonate sunset. It's really beautiful.
Tough to get depth like that, and also to be abstract and put them on a flat surface. So he achieved both on that one. Very nice, Leslie.
This is another Rick Bombassi.
You know, Rick's really gets out to some.
And Laura Gable.
Oh, and Laura had 3 beautiful pieces in here, and she uses heavy impasto paint and does a wonderful job with it. All 3 pieces were remarkable.
So one thing I wanted to mention, which I thought was a little bit relevant, was that Mike, you as a painter picked a photograph as your judge choice, and Ellen, who's a photographer, picked a painting as her choice.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. All right, well, we're just about to come up on 1 o'clock. Rich, do you want to wrap things up? I can.
Yeah.
And there's David Martin's piece.
That's a really good photograph of it too.
It takes a little bit of courage with all this flat work, these photographs and these paintings, to, you know, just enter that piece of sculpture and zingo. Good thinking.
So no brown bag next week. Brown bag the following week is going to be the Blue Mountain Forest Cooperative. So we're going to be looking at fire and forest and the environment there. And Mike, I'm hoping that you and Marky and Eileen on September 1st are going to reprise the program you did on Parkinson's for Rotary the other day.
We'll see if we can.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to mask up.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you all for coming.
Everybody for joining us.